When the Astronomicon falters, who then guides mankind's soul? The question echoes like a fracture in eternity, spoken by a long-dead remembrancer, whose Vox recordings were believed purged during the scouring. As the lost archive flickers back into existence, dust drifting like the ashes of forgotten empires, the audience is pulled into a moment older than loyalty, older than despair. The Imperium stands immutable, yet strained, its star-spanning dominion trembling under the weight of wars unending. Across the void, pilgrim fleets whisper litanies to hold their bearings, while astropaths tense as faint whirls of static corrupt their visions. It is said that on this day, the Emperor's light ever burning, ever unchallenged, dimmed by a margin so small, it should have been impossible. But impossibility is merely the prelude to tragedy in the grim darkness of the far future. Am ding die ding die ding die day die day die day die day die day day die day 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 I died, we died, when we died, the Imperium at war moves like a wounded titan across the stars, and upon Cadia's shattered remains, scattered observatories still monitor the tides of the Imperium with unwavering devotion. Veterans of the Black Crusade guard them, their armor etched with the memory of traitor fire. As the Lost Chronicle replays, the data priests at Site Helion Vi detect a pulseless shudder in the psychic miasma, subtle yet vast. The Adeptus Astra Telepathica calls it a ripple, the Ordo Malleus calls it a warning. In the shadow of the Eye of Terror, where reality surrenders to nightmares, this tremor manifests as a beam of cold illumination streaking across the warp, like a candle guttering in a storm. It does not go unnoticed. From the shattered remains of an ancient Black Legion warship, fragments of demon script twist awake, whispering that the Emperor's light blinked. Far above the Segmentum Solar, the phalanx drifts like a golden monolith scarred by 1,000 sieges. Its corridors thrum with readiness, imperial fists and their successors preparing for distant wars. When the tremor in the Astronomicon reaches the vessel, the ship's Geller fields quake for the briefest heartbeat. Veterans exchange troubled glances, for even the smallest warp fluctuation on the phalanx carries meaning. Some mutter of Horus, as though ancient treachery stirs in the dust of history. In a silent chapel flickering with lumen candles, a senior chaplain receives a vision shadow stretching long across Terra's spires, the throne itself trembling as if something deep within the golden throne strains against its bindings. But such visions are known to twist truth with terror. So the chaplain locks the memory away, whispering that faith endures, yet the tremor lingers behind his eyelids like a stain. Within the librarius of the Blood Angels, the sanguinary priests speak quietly of omens. Their visions are already cursed with echoes of the Red Thirst and the Black Rage, yet this new disturbance arrives like a cold knife through their fevered dreams. Brother Librarian Orion sees the Astronomicon as a blazing wound torn across the void and seas. For a breath, a fissure appear within it. He sees angels falling from crimson skies, their wings ablaze, their cries swallowed by endless dark. When he wakes, the chapel of sacrifice is silent, the statues of Sanguinius looming like sorrowful sentinels. He reports the vision, but the priests know that to speak of faltering light is to inspire panic in systems already buckling beneath tyrannid incursions, orced crusades, and heretical uprisings. They bury it beneath liturgies and hope. But hope is dust in the Imperium. Deep in the forges of Mars, the priesthood of the Omnissiah studies the phenomenon with mechanical precision. Red-robed magi chant Ben-Herrick strings to dissect the anomaly while plasma furnaces roar like caged suns. For them, faith is logic, and logic reveals patterns in the noise. Across layers of encrypted analyses, the data displays something unfathomable, an infinitesimal dip in the Astronomican's consistency. Though tiny, its existence defies the 10,000 years of constancy since the Emperor took his throne. Archimagos Thalisvi proposes a hypothesis so heretical it should have been deleted, that the Emperor's psychic output briefly shifted direction, as though aimed not outward to guide the Imperium, but inward toward some hidden point within the immaterium. The Council purges the data, purges the words, purges the thought, but the anomaly persists, flickering behind red bionic eyes like a forbidden icon. On Holy Terra, beneath the hollow thunder of a billion prayers, the Adeptus Custodius sense the change more acutely than any. They stand ever vigilant before the Eternity Gate, their auramite armor gleaming beneath sanctified lumens. When the tremor occurs, each custodian feels a vibration through the very marrow of their engineered bones, an almost imperceptible tightening of the air, as though reality itself inhaled sharply. Within the hidden chambers of the Tower of Hegemon, Shield Captain Valerian consults with the Silent Sisterhood. Their null presence, normally a bastion of psychic stillness, flickers. One sister experiences a momentary phantom sensation, not pain, but the shadow of a scream that never fully formed. Such things should be impossible. The Emperor is the still point around which the galaxy turns. He does not tremble, his light does not falter, and yet something shifted. Across the scattered tomb worlds of the Necrons, ancient sensors hum awake. The Silent King, wandering eternities away, feels an infinitesimal distortion ripple across the fabric of real space. On Cronus, metallic custodians pause mid-march as chronometric arrays detect a psychic fluctuation far beyond their usual parameters. Though they do not comprehend the Emperor nor the Astronomican, they recognize power and deviation. Their algorithms conclude with chilling clarity. A force previously stable has altered trajectory. Such a shift, even slight, could cascade across future epochs in ways the Necrontyr long ago learned to fear. Deep within a stasis chamber, a cryptek awakens and whispers metallic warnings into the void, declaring that the star beacon of the Flesh King has faltered. Though the Necrons remain without emotion, their awakening protocols accelerate, preparing contingencies buried since the war in heaven. Something ancient moves. In the galactic east, where the Tyranids carve silent voids through once prosperous systems, Hive Fleet Jormungandr pauses. For a moment, the synaptic web flickers, as though a lure light-guiding prey abruptly wavered. The minds within the swarm taste uncertainty, a rare phenomenon in their relentless purpose. The beacon of prey, as their alien perception frames the Astronomican, feels disrupted, its psychic scent momentarily distorted. The fleet shifts course microscopically, adjusting to the new texture of the void. On a doomed agri-world soon to be consumed, an Imperial Guard regiment notices their astropaths suffering sudden nosebleeds and blindness. Their screams coherent for only one phrase, the light stutters. The Tyranids, unknowing of the greater implications, simply continue their eternal hunger. But the galaxy trembles, for even beasts recognize the moment a predator falters. Far from the light of Terra, aboard a drifting space hulk, tangled in remnants of forgotten wars, the Dark Angels interrogate a hooded prisoner. The figure, a fallen, speaks in riddles and veiled memories, yet when the Astronomican trembles, he falls silent. His eyes widen not in fear, but in recognition. He whispers of the days before the heresy, when signals flickered and destinies unraveled. Librarian Seraphon, his mind shielded by a dozen wards, perceives fleeting images forced from the prisoner's psyche. A throne cracking beneath divine strain, wings of light fracturing into 1,000 shards, a human voice calling out across the warp, not the Emperor's. Seraphon demands explanation, but the fallen merely smiles, claiming redemption is impossible, but fate remains malleable. The Hulk shudders, metal panels groaning like ghosts resisting resurrection. In the depths of Camorra, the Drukari sense warp currents shift like a blade sliding through flesh. Homunculi observe the tremor with perverse fascination. For any disruption in the Emperor's psychic radiance often promises chaos, suffering, and opportunity. Archon Zelith of the Obsidian Talon peers into a psalmir that reflects only pain. For a fraction of a heartbeat, it refracts a beam of gold pure, impossible gold before shattering into 1,000 screaming fragments. Even the Drukari, who revel in torment, recoil from such purity gone awry. Zelith dispatches raiding parties, claiming new storms of fear will soon arise in real space. Their cruelty thrives on instability, and nothing destabilizes the galaxy quite like the possibility that the Emperor's light favors. Yet even they wonder what force could disturb a god chained to a throne of eternity. Within the Eye of Terror, demons writhe in sudden ecstasy. The Astronomican's tremor ripples through their realms like perfume, sweet and forbidden. The Changer of Ways laughs, a sound like cracking bones woven through silk. Zinch's minions swirl in spirals of prophecy as new patterns unfurl. Futures previously locked behind the Emperor's blinding light now shimmer open. 1,000 contradictory destinies spill forth, some promising the Imperium's collapse, others depicting its violent rebirth. A herald of Sinch rises above the maelstrom, declaring that even gods may strain, even monoliths may fracture. It whispers that a secret long buried beneath Terra's sanctified marble has stirred, that the Emperor for one impossible heartbeat looked away. The warp roars approval. For in that moment of faltering light lies the seed of revolution. As the chronicle nears its end, the lost Vox recording flickers, its stabilizers struggling. Across the Imperium, from shrine worlds to dying colonies, the tremor fades, but its memory clings like cold breath on a mirror. Astropaths recover, though many refuse to speak of what they witnessed. The Phalanx returns to its patrol. Mars purges the heresy. Terra continues its unending vigil. Yet something unseen continues to echo. In the deep chambers beneath the Golden Throne, mechanisms older than the Imperium emit a single, nearly imperceptible sound, a click. A small shift in machinery that has not moved in 10 millennia. The Custodes do not hear it. The Sisters do not feel it. No mortal mind perceives it. But somewhere far beyond the veil of the warp, a forgotten presence opens its eyes, not fully, not yet, and whispers a word the archive refuses to decode. The recording ends. The silence that follows trembles. The last breath of the archive still echoes a whisper without sound. A presence half awakened, though the Vox recording has fallen silent. Its residue clings to the minds of those who dared interpret its omen. Across the Imperium, unease settles like ash. The word that could not be decoded lingers as pressure behind the skull, a ghost of meaning. On Terra, a confessor kneels before a cracked shrine candela and feels, for the first time in his long life, the faint tremor of doubt. He presses his forehead to cold marble and begs forgiveness for a sin he has not yet committed. The chapel's incense wafts upward like a dying saint's final breath. In that smoke, he sees a shadow tall, robed, golden butt head bowed. The image vanishes instantly. He tells no one. Yet his voice breaks when he recites the creed, as though mourning something he cannot name. Far from holy walls, aboard the Phalanx, the custodian-bred tension of the imperial fists stirs. The warriors gather before a hollow projection showing unstable warp charts, the anomaly highlighted like a flickering wound. Captain Lysandros clenches his fist, murmuring of old betrayals he thought, resolved in the Imperium's marrow. A young battle brother, newly elevated from the 10th, whispers if the Emperor's light can truly waver. He is silenced swiftly not through violence, but through fear. Doubt is a contagion worse than the warp, and even a whisper can doom a fortress monastery. Later, alone in his barracks, the young warrior dreams of Terra burning. The Astronomican's brilliance fractures in his mind like a pane of glass struck by a hammer. In its shards, he sees a single eye, unblinking, dispassionate, watching him. When he wakes, his armor's purity seals have turned gray. Across the segmentum solar, Inquisitor Maedra of the Ordo Hereticus pores over reports of the psychic tremor. She burns half of them upon reading. Too many astropaths utter the same forbidden phrase. The light looked away. She summons a conclave aboard her black iron vessel, where robed inquisitors argue behind sealed hell masks. Some call it a warp fluctuation. Others, more fearful, whisper of the Emperor's failing strength. Maedra rejects both. She speaks of a third possibility, one that chills even the steel-blooded, that something else called to him. The council erupts in fury, accusations, and half-drawn execution decrees. Maedra watches with cold detachment, certain she has struck the vein of truth. She leaves before the debate's end, for she senses eyes upon her. Not human eyes, not demon eyes. something in between. Something that remembers the day unity rose from old Earth's dust. On Baal, the blood angels gather for the red rite of reflection. Chaplains lead hymns, but their voices crack under a weight they cannot banish. The eldest among them speak of visions of sanguineous weeping blood, as he looks upon a throne wrapped in shadow. Brother Orion, shaken still by his earlier nightmare, finds himself wandering the ruins of Baal Secundus. There, amid the silence of broken worlds, he senses a presence not hostile, not divine, but sorrowful. It whispers through dust storms shaped like wings, beckoning him to remember, and he does. Briefly, painfully, he remembers a moment of the heresy he never lived, Terra trembling as the Emperor unleashed power beyond comprehension. Orion collapses, clutching his chest as phantom blades pierce his heart. When he rises, his eyes glow faintly gold for a heartbeat. Then the light dies. On Mars, the Mechanicus denies the anomaly's significance, but denial is another form of fear. Deep within the Noctis labyrinth, Archmagos Thalisvi kneels before sealed machines older than the Adeptus Mechanicus itself. He connects neural filaments, hoping to reanalyze the purged data. Instead of clarity, he receives a vision, a towering humanoid shape of pure radiant force, chained by its own brilliance. Around it coil serpents of dark code, ancient, alive. One whispers into the Emperor's ear. The shape reacts, not with rage, but with resignation. The Lisvi disconnects violently, servoskull shrieking. His mechadendrites twitch uncontrollably. When he looks into a steel panel, the reflection staring back is not his own. It is older and smiling. He orders the entire sector to lock down, but even he knows it is too late. The curse of knowledge spreads faster than fire. On a shrine world near the halo stars, pilgrims gather to hear the words of a prophetess touched by the Emperor's grace. She speaks only in metaphors until today. As the wind howls through bone spires, she declares openly that the Emperor turned his gaze inward. Priests recoil. Some call for her execution. Others tremble, sensing truth within her heresy. She collapses mid-sermon, screaming at visions of a great golden figure drowned in an ocean of shifting faces. The crowd scatters. Some flee in terror. Others kneel in obsession. The prophetess rises slowly, her eyes now devoid of pupils. She whispers a location, a single, impossible coordinate within the warp. A place no chart recognizes. A place which, if real, should not exist. Moments later, she bursts into flame. Her ashes spell a symbol known only to the oldest inquisitors. In the Black Library, a Harlequin Shadowseer pauses in her endless dance of foresight. The tremor of the Astronomicon manifests in the webway as a ripple through solid light. She kneels, gazing into a pool of memory water, reflecting futures that contradict themselves. She sees the Emperor rising, not restored, not triumphant, but questioning. She sees Primarchs returning in shadow or flame. She sees Terra split open like a skull struck by a hammer. The Shadowseer gathers her mask and prepares to depart to warn the Aldar, yet something blocks her path. A presence stands in the webway tunnel ahead, cloaked in impossible radiance. It bears no weapon, yet its mere form sends reality trembling. It turns its face toward her, and though no features can be seen, she feels recognition. In fear, it raises a finger commanding silence. Within Camorra, Archon Zalith's raiders return with stolen astropaths, whose minds are bound in pain-racked chains. Yet, when the Archon interrogates them, their psychic neurons ignite with golden fire. One breaks free long enough to speak a single phrase through a mouth that is not his own. He remembers. The words send a shockwave through the chamber, shattering obsidian pillars. Zelif's fury masks a deeper terror. No, Drukari wishes to be noticed by a god of man. She orders the astropaths dismembered, but their severed tongues keep whispering. The Cabal flees the chamber. Later, Zelith gazes into her soul mirror for the first time since her ascension. She sees nothing reflected. The mirror is empty, and worse, she hears breath behind her. Warm human breath, where no human stands. Above a war-torn world besieged by chaos, the Grey Knights battle across burning manufactorums. Amid the carnage, Supreme Grand Master Kaldor Drago feels a ripple in the warp, unlike any demon incursion. It resonates with purity, but also pain. He senses, faintly, an unshielded thought not meant for mortal minds. Thought shaped by the Emperor himself. focused not outward at the Imperium, but at something hidden beneath Terra's mantle. Drago pauses mid-battle, blade dripping with demon ichor, disturbed in a way few Grey Knights ever experience. A voice not warp-spawned, not divine, but wary murmurs, "I see you, son." Drago roars in defiance, slaying 3 demons in a single sweep, but the voice lingers. He wipes his blade clean and whispers a prayer not of devotion, but of fear. In the depths of the Golden Throne, unnoticed by any custodian, the ancient machinery shifts again. A second click follows the first, louder, deliberate. Deep within the throne's unseen catacombs, a skeletal figure in tattered robes, Malcador's last remaining psychic. Echo shudders as the Emperor's dormant thought brushes against it. The Echo remembers a promise made on the final day of the siege. A promise the Emperor was never meant to keep. Data spirits scream. The machinery warms. For the first time in 10,000 years, a gauge moves 1 fraction upward. The Echo looks toward the surface, whispering, "Forgive me." Dust collapses from vaulted ceilings. Something beneath Terra awakens. And in the final moment, across every sector, from the Phalanx to Baal, from Mars to Camorra, every psyker hears the same sudden whisper, a word forbidden, lost, unthinkable, Horus. But the voice is not the War Master's, it is the Emperor's. The whispered name still echoes across 1,000 minds, Horus, spoken not by traitor nor demon, but by the Emperor himself. The galaxy recoils, unable to bear the meaning. On Terra, Confessor Hale kneels in his cell, quill slipping from trembling fingers. He tries to pray, but the words come out broken, distorted by the psychic shock. He remembers childhood sermons describing Horus as the arch-betrayer, the greatest wound in human history. Yet the Emperor's voice did not speak in hatred, it spoke in mourning. Hale buries his head in his hands. A faith built on certainty now cracks. He hears again the Emperor's voiceless whisper carried through the warp, "My son." The Confessor weeps, not for the War Master, but for a God King who still suffers. For the first time he understands that the Emperor's divinity may have been shaped from grief more than glory. On Baal, the Blood Angels gather in the shadow of their Primarch statues. Their chaplains recite litanies meant to drown the tremor of revelation, yet every warrior feels the unspoken truth looming like a blade. Brother Orion stares at the mural of Sanguinius, embracing the Emperor during the triumph of Alinor. The Emperor's painted face seems different now, no longer serene, but weighted by sorrow Orion cannot unsee. He hears phantom wings beating behind him. When he turns, no one stands there, but a single feather lies on the chapel floor. Red, wet, still warm. Orion kneels beside it and feels a pulse, weak yet steady. A vision seizes him, the Emperor standing over Horus's dying body, not triumphant, but whispering a final secret into his son's ear. Orion screams as the vision ends. His tears taste like blood. On the Phalanx, Captain Lysandros meets with the chapter's senior librarians. Their psychic warding chambers hum with strain as they attempt to decipher the Emperor's whisper. The librarians insist it was not a call to vengeance, nor a summons to war. It was remembrance, and remembrance among the immortal is a weapon sharper than any blade. Lysandros clenches his jaw, recalling Rogaldorn's disappearance after the Iron Cage, the Primarch's final words lost to history. Librarian senses his doubt and presses deeper into the warp. Suddenly, he collapses, his armor cracking from internal pressure as something vast presses through him. His mouth opens. A voice not his own rasps, "Father, forgive me." Then he dies. The chamber falls silent. Lysandros whispers a question no space marine should ever speak. What if loyalty itself has been built upon a wound that never healed? In the Ordo Hereticus stronghold aboard the Black Edict, Inquisitor Maedra studies ancient heretical scriptures long thought destroyed. Every forbidden scrap points to a single implication. The Emperor's final moment on the vengeful spirit was not victory, but sacrifice. She pieces together fragments of visions from sanctioned psychers, cross-referencing them with Mechanicus, data ghosts, and custodian reports. A pattern emerges, terrible and undeniable, a psychic tether that once bound the Emperor to Horus, a bond not severed but redirected. The Emperor may have drawn some part of Horus's soul into himself, imprisoning it to prevent chaos from claiming it fully. Medra's heart stalls. If true, then the Emperor's whisper was not a memory. It was a response. Before she can record her findings, A robed figure steps from the shadows. A custodian, his blade gleams. "Saw too much," he says, but his voice trembles. In the Noctis Labyrinth, Archmagos Thalisvi descends into forgotten chasms beneath the surface of Mars. Guided by a corrupted reflection of himself he cannot explain, he follows a trail of broken cogitators, each displaying a single symbol: Horus's eye, drawn in golden light. Impossible. Heresy encoded in purity. He reaches an ancient vault sealed since the dark age of technology. With trembling mechadendrites, he opens it. Within lies a throne-sized sarcophagus lined with psychic null metal. Inside rests a skeleton shaped like a transhuman giant. It is not Horus, nor any Primarch. Its skull bears a crown of circuitry, and on its rib cage is carved a phrase in Low Gothic. He must not bear this alone. Thalisvi recoils, horrified. The Mechanicus never built this. Something older did, and they knew the Emperor's fate before he sat the throne. In the frozen catacombs of Cadia's remains, guardsmen patrol among monuments shattered by Abaddon's wrath. One soldier, Marindace, finds a shard of stone glowing faintly with psychic warmth. When he touches it, he is thrust into a memory not his own. The Emperor speaking to his assembled sons during the Great Crusade. He sees Horus standing nearest, pride and love mingled in equal measure. The Emperor does not speak of conquest or obedience. He speaks of fear, his fear that humanity's darkest days have not yet begun. Marin drops the shard, gasping. He realizes the truth. The Imperium was not built from certainty, but from desperation. The belief that the Emperor was infallible was a lie to protect a fragile species. Marin looks at the broken stars. If the Emperor can doubt, then what hope remains for mortals? In Camorra, Archon Zelith flees her own shadow as the stolen astropathic whispers haunt her. She hides within a chamber of screaming mirrors, but each reflection now shows a different version of her, dying, burning, aging, crumbling to dust. One mirror shows her kneeling before a figure of golden radiance. Its face is sorrow itself. It reaches toward her, and she feels her heart seize. In a moment of clarity, she understands. Even the Aldari, with all their cruelty, were shaped by the same cosmic agony. The Emperor's grief resonates across races. Zelith shatters the mirror, but the reflection remains, smiling in the shards. It whispers, "Sons are not the only ones who fall." She flees, leaving behind droplets of black blood. On a Grey Knight strike cruiser, Drago meditates in an attempt to understand the Emperor's whisper. His mind drifts through layers of warplight until he stands once more on the broken deck of the Vengeful Spirit. But this time he is neither observer nor intruder. He is a witness, sees the Emperor kneeling over Horus's fallen form. The Emperor reaches toward his son, not to destroy, but to save. Drago watches in horror as the Emperor draws Horus's fragmented soul into himself, shielding it from chaos. The act wounds the Emperor deeper than any blade. It curses him to eternal conflict, not with demons, but with the echoes of a beloved son. Drago falls to his knees, whispering, "All our wars," built on a father's grief. In the Black Library, the Shadow Seer continues her dance of prophecy. The figure blocking her path, the being of radiance, speaks at last. Its voice is fragmented, like 1,000 memories speaking in unison. He cannot hold it much longer. She realizes with terror what the radiance truly is, not the Emperor himself, but a fraction of him, a splinter of his soul, cast into the webway during the siege, severed from his failing form, shard of the Emperor, preserved in perfect clarity. It reaches for her mask. When the cage breaks, it whispers, "You must choose who suffers." Before she can react, it dissolves into motes of gold. The library trembles. On the Black Edict, Inquisitor Madra awakens chained to an execution shrine. The custodian who confronted her now kneels beside her, helm removed. His face is scarred with psychic burns. "I was commanded to silence you," he admits. "But I heard the whisper too." He confesses that the custodies have known for millennia that the Emperor's burden was not static, that something stirs beneath Terra, growing stronger as the Emperor weakens. He battles not chaos, the custodian whispers, but memory. Maedra closes her eyes. If the Emperor's inner torment breaks free, what then becomes of his light? Before she can speak, alarms howl. A psychic surge erupts from Terra, visible even through the void. Across the Imperium, every astropath convulses, screaming the same prophecy. The throne is cracking. In shrines, battles, in fortresses, warriors feel the ground tremble beneath their feet. On Baal, feathers fall from the skies. On Mars, machine spirits wail. On Cadia's ruins, the air turns hollow. The Astronomicon flickers, then pulses brighter than ever, bathing the void in blinding gold. For one heartbeat, every human soul feels warmth, genuine warmth, as though touched by a father's hand. For many, it is unbearable. And then darkness follows. As the light fades, a figure steps from the shadows behind the golden throne, a silhouette unmistakable, impossible, Primarch silhouette, but not the one anyone expects. The dying echo of Part 3 hangs like ash in the starless dark, and from it unfolds a new shudder in the weave of fate. The void above Cadia's grave worlds churns with memory, and Saint Celestine feels the phantom burn of wings she no longer trusts. She drifts beside the fractured edge of reality, sensing a presence she once called divine recoil from her like a wounded animal. Her faith, once incandescent, is now a trembling ember she cups in blood-stained hands. Even the Astronomicon's pulse falters in her vision, as if the Emperor himself hesitates to watch what must come next. She whispers a vow she cannot finish, for a shadow moves behind her thoughts, sits silhouette unmistakable. Lorgar, prophet of heresy, kneeling not in mockery, but in something far more dreadful. Reverence. The echo of that impossible sight carries across the warp, reaching Guilliman as he stands upon the strategium deck of the Macragg's Honor. The Primarch gazes into the tactical hololith, where the stars rearrange themselves into patterns that should not exist, as if the constellations are trying to warn him. His gauntleted fingers clench. He remembers the quiet promise he made upon waking in the Imperium Nihilus. Bring light back to a galaxy allergic to hope. But now the light flickers like a flame starved of air. Even the Indomitus Crusade's victories feel hollow. Worlds liberated slip back into despair, their faith collapsing under the weight of what the rift whispers. Guilliman recalls the Emperor's corpse-cold stillness upon the throne and wonders silently, fearfully whether his father ever wanted faith at all. Across the warp-torn corridors of the vengeful spirit, Ezekiel Abaddon feels destiny curl tighter around his throat. The War Master stands at the heart of a ritual chamber once drenched in Horus agony, now resonant with a new, unnatural silence. The gods no longer scream demands, they watch, they wait. Abaddon feels their attention like claws wrapped in velvet, almost gentle, which terrifies him more than rage ever could. In the dim glow of demon fire, he remembers his oath to his father's shade, sworn over a corpse that would never rise. I will succeed where he fell. But each black crusade, each triumph, each shard of the Cadian gate shattered, brings him closer to a truth he refuses to speak. Perhaps he is not marching toward victory, but toward a revelation that will unmake even the gods behind him. Somewhere beneath the rust-choked vaults of Mars, Archmagos Belisarius' call moves through a storm of static-laden visions. Machine spirits howl in frequencies that mimic prayer and blasphemy simultaneously. Data fragments swirl before him, patterns, centuries old, returning like ghosts demanding recognition. Calls many minds argue across the metal cathedrals of his cognition, but one voice rises above all, the one that remembers whispers traded with a hooded custodian, the price of knowledge paid in silence. He sees the Primaris project in new, terrible context. Every gene sequence trembles with coded echoes he never wrote. Something ancient, older than the Emperor's design, pulses from within the very building blocks of humanity. And as the new spheric lights dim, Call understands that he has not been creating the future, he has been unlocking a door someone else hid. A door that is now opening on its own. Far above the charred remnants of Armageddon, Gezkul Maguruk Thraka stares into the void with an uncharacteristic quiet. His crude war armor hums with the psychic feedback of a wog, so massive it strains reality. Yet beneath the rage, beneath the love of battle, there is a flicker of something the Imperium would never believe an orc could feel: confusion. Rogrok's prophecy, half mad, half true, echoes in his skull. The stars ain't where day used to be, boss. Day's waitin', and in the warplit horizon, Giscal sees a shape forming, not a fleet, not a god, something else. something that makes even his colossal heart pound in primal recognition. He roars not in fear, but in challenge, and even he feels the universe holding its breath. On the black ship Requiem Solace, a young psyker named Licia trembles within her containment cell, her thoughts slipping through cracks in reality. She sees the galaxy as overlapping layers of suffering, faith, and destiny, all bleeding into each other. Her eyes glaze white as vision sees her. She witnesses Eldar craft worlds drifting like bones in cosmic water, sees Tyranid hive fleets writhe in unfamiliar agitation, hears Necrons chanting in metallic unison a word she cannot translate but feels in her marrow. When she speaks, her voice is not her own. The veil is thinning. What was sealed is stirring. All who kneeled before the wrong throne. The guards recoil, purity seals snapping in sudden heat. Licia falls silent, certain of only one thing. The Emperor's gaze no longer burns upon humanity. Something else is watching. Within the echoing halls of Craftworld Alth, Eldrad Althrin stands upon a balcony overlooking the infinite glow of the Infinity Circuit. He has guided his people through countless tragedies, skirted the edge of damnation, defied gods and fate. Yet tonight, even his ageless composure trembles. The skeins of fate once tangled but decipherable now fray into static, refusing interpretation. He reaches toward the threads, only to find them dissolving at his touch. In their place, he sees a new path forming, one that no Farseer has ever witnessed, a future where neither chaos nor order reign, but something silent, ancient, and patient, something older than the war in heaven. Eldrad whispers a name he has not spoken since a forgotten prophecy, and for the first time in centuries he feels fear sharpen into despair. In the deep black between the stars, a Tyranid Norn queen shifts uneasily in her nutrient throne, sensing a pressure against the hive mind. Not an attack, something worse, an observation. A counter-consciousness, vast and cold, mapping the hive's every synaptic pulse. The choir of minds under her control wavers, rippling with a dissonance no Tyranid should feel. Doubt. The fleets pause in their perfect hunger, drifting like leviathans listening for a sound only they can hear. A single instinct pulses from the oppressive dark. Adaptation is required. But adaptation to what? No biomass sings of this predator, no star yields clues. The hive mind recoils, not in fear, but in confusion. In confusion, for the devourer of galaxies is an omen of apocalypse. Deep within the tomb world of Solemnus, Trazyn the Infinite observes his galleries with rare agitation. Stasis fields flicker around relics he thought unchangeable. Chronometric distortions ripple across displays, cataloging wars that have not yet occurred. He traces a trembling hand along the sarcophagus of a captured demon prince, its form flickering between identities, as if unsure which version of itself is true. Even his hyperlogical mind recognizes the implication. History itself is rewriting, not by mortal hand or divine whim, but by a force that predates Necron memory. He contacts Arachon the Diviner, whose usual arrogance is replaced by cold calculation. It awakens. Arachon whispers, "The lie of our origin shudders." And Trazyn realizes his most valuable collection may soon be reality itself. Above the blasted plains of Vigilus, Sisters of Battle march in solemn procession through ash that falls like funeral snow. Canonis Veridine pauses, lifting her gaze to a sky bruised by warp storms. She has fought her entire life in unwavering devotion, her faith, her armor. But tonight, the familiar fire within her falters. She recalls the vision from Part 3, the light dimming, the Emperor turning away. Doubt claws at her, subtle but relentless. Yet she does not break. She kneels in the ash, whispering the litany of endurance, even as her voice trembles. The ground beneath her shifts, not from bombardment, but from resonance. Low planetary hum, rising as though the world itself is chanting back. The sound is ancient, metallic, and not aligned with any human creed. Her sisters fall silent, listening. Something beneath Vigilus is waking. On the bridge of a splintered dark Eldar cruiser, Astrobel Vecht watches the fracturing webs of real space on his holodisplay. Gamora shivers with unnatural tension, its spires creaking like bones under strain. The demonic predators that usually stalk its shadows have retreated, cowering in corners. Vecht Eternal, calculating, feels something he has almost forgotten: unease. He has survived gods, betrayals, and apocalypses, carving empire from torment. Yet when he gazes into the widening cracks between dimensions, he tastes a presence that is not chaos, not hunger, not hatred. Something worse: indifference. A force rising not to destroy the Eldar, but to erase the relevance of everything they have ever been. For once, Vecht's smile fades. And at the edge of the cicatrix maledictum, where the warp bleeds into reality with violent serenity, a figure emerges from swirling empiric storms. Not demon, not psyker, not Xenos. A silhouette bound in armor older than memory, its surface inscribed with symbols neither imperial nor heretical. Its steps reshape the void, leaving ripples that silence demons and blind astropaths. As it lifts its head, its voice pours through the galaxy like a forgotten hymn. The first lie ends. The Makers return. And in that momentous cross, every faction, every battlefield, every throne and tombs, something breaks. The Emperor opens his eyes. The moment the Emperor's eyes open does not bring light. It brings remembrance. A terrible, universe-cracking remembrance, and the galaxy reels as though struck by a titan's fist. Guilliman feels it first, a psychic convulsion rippling through his gene-forged soul, pulling him to his knees. Round him, the Macrag's honor groans like a wounded beast. Celestine hears wings burning behind her, the last feathers of her faith searing into ash. Across the warplit horizon stands the armored figure who named itself a Maker, yet its presence bends reality as if it were not entering the galaxy, but returning to a place it once shaped. The Emperor's half-life radiance spills like molten grief, and for the first time in millennia, his voice touches the fabric of the warp, not thunder, but a whisper breaking under its own weight. You should not be here. Abaddon senses the meaning of those words like a sword through his spine. Within the vengeful spirit, the gods' gazes vanish all at once, their roar replaced by a silence that feels like abandonment. Panic radiates from demon engines. The ship's walls bleed backward into lifeless metal. Abaddon staggers forward, gripping the talon of Horus as if it alone anchors him. He recalls the vision of Lorgar kneeling to the newcomer, a vision he refused to believe. Now he understands why the dark gods screamed for crusade after crusade. They were not hungry for souls. They were afraid. He bellows a curse that fractures icons and shatters shrines, but the void does not answer. It listens. It waits. And for the first time since the Imperium's birth, Abaddon feels the bleak terror of insignificance. On Mars, Call's cognition choirs overload as the data storm reaches crescendo. He sees the Emperor's true psychic flare, not the corpse light that fueled the Astronomicon, but the original, impossible brilliance of the man who shattered gods. Yet there is no triumph in that radiance, only sorrow so profound that machine spirits weep coolant tears. The awakening Maker's presence overlays every cogitator, every archive, every piece of human history Call ever studied. It does not match, does not fit. Entire timelines recoil, rewriting themselves in bursts of corrupted memory. His servo skulls chant old binary prayers that conflict with their own programming. Final truth descends like a guillotine. Humanity's God was not born divine, nor ascended divine. He built himself into a throne designed to keep something older asleep. It did not sleep deeply enough. Celestine confronts the Maker in the warp, wings flickering like dying suns, blade trembling as if resisting her grip. The figure's armor bears no allegiance, not chaos, not the Emperor, not Xeno's design. Yet every line, every symbol radiates a familiarity she cannot place. "What are you?" she demands, though her voice sounds distant, as though swallowed by ages. The Maker turns toward her, and beneath the visor she senses multiplicity, one being, many reflections, all fractured by time, shaped the first flame. He stole it, bound it into flesh. Into you, Celestine's faith convulses. Memories she never lived flash through her mind, winged guardians forging a star-warm lattice, the Emperor walking among them as a thief crowned in stolen fire. She screams, not in rage but in heartbreak. The warp convulses around her, threatening to flay truth from existence. On Terra, as the golden throne shudders like a dying heart, Guilliman forces himself to stand. He pushes through blinding psychic force, through through the agony of a galaxy reshaping itself. Custodians kneel or collapse in convulsions as unseen pressure crushes their transhuman might. Guilliman reaches the final gate, feeling as though walking through centuries of judgment. The Emperor stands from the throne not fully, not triumphantly, but like a man rising from a wound too deep to heal. His eyes, bright as extinction, meet Guilliman's. The Primarch's voice breaks. "Father, what have you done?" The Emperor looks past him, toward the warp where the Maker waits. "What I had to," he answers, not defending, not apologizing, merely stating a truth forged in blood. His next words fracture Guilliman's soul. "I was not humanity's first protector, only its last thief." On Ulthwa, Eldrad battles the collapsing skeins, his mind bleeding from the strain. The Infinity Circuit keens like a dying god as living souls within it feel their ancient memories trembling. The Maker's return ripples through Eldar history like a blade through silk. He glimpses forgotten epochs, the first Starkeks, beings who shaped reality's laws before the Eldar crawled from their cradles. And he sees humanity, a species born under stolen fire, a mistake built upon a theft that fractured the balance of the galaxy. Sermon appears beside him, spectral yet resolute, whispering a truth he never wished to speak again. We warned him, he would not listen. The craft world trembles as new futures tear themselves open, screaming. Eldrad collapses as he sees the final branch twist into clarity, and knows the Eldar's doom was not Slaanesh, but the Emperor's sin. On the shadowed depths of Solemnis, Trazyn and Oricon perform a desperate ritual to stabilize reality as their tomb world rattles against dimensional recoil. Oricon's divining rods fracture mid-chant, impossibilities cascading from their glowing ends. Trazyn watches his prized relics flicker between authenticity and non-existence, history rewriting itself beneath his feet. "This is catastrophic," he mutters. "No," Orican snarls, eyes burning with equations of doom. "This is correction." He reveals what the Necrontyr once knew, but entombed in secrecy. The Makers were the architects before the war in heaven, and their absence allowed the galaxy's cycle to spiral into madness. The Emperor's theft delayed their restoration but ensured their wrath. As the tomb world stabilizes, Trazyn notices one artifact remain untouched, a shattered piece of armor matching the Maker's design.
"Ashed upon it."
A symbol older than stars, one matching the Emperor's sigil inverted. Goskelzwog erupts into a psychic storm beyond anything the orcs have ever unleashed. Yet even this boundless fury quakes beneath the Maker's presence. Gazgul snarls as reality warps around him. His belief, the raw orc gestalt that shapes the impossible, flickers. He sees visions, an ancient battlefield of titanic beings forging destinies the orcs were never meant to witness. And he sees the Emperor, younger, mortal, stealing a shard of their fire and running like a wounded animal into the future. It is the funniest thing the Prophet of Gork and Mork has ever seen. He roars with manic laughter, shaking off fear as only an orc can. But beneath the humor lies something darker, a prophecy forming in the back of his skull. The orcs aren't just born for war, they were made as a counterweight. The weight is shifting. Lycia aboard the Requiem, Solace becomes a conduit as the Emperor and Maker's psychic confrontation erupts. Her scream cracks every cell wall and kills 3 guards instantly. The visions pour through her like molten stars, 2 titanic wills colliding across the warp. She sees the Emperor's desperation, his millennia of sacrifice, the unbearable burden he never allowed his sons to glimpse. She sees the Maker's fury, cold as dying universes, patient as stone. And she sees humanity suspended between them like a child held by 2 quarreling gods. The visions end with a final horrifying image, the Emperor extending his hand toward the Maker not in challenge but in surrender.
Ow.
When Lycia collapses, she whispers a broken truth. He wants to give it back. On Vigilus, the planetary hum erupts into a planetary scream as something beneath the crust fractures free. Canonis Veridine watches as black monoliths rise, splitting the ground with tectonic precision. They form a vast symbol visible even from orbit, a glyph matching the Maker's armor. Her sisters chant prayers, voices wavering, as the monoliths ignite with impossible light. No, in that radiance she sees the Emperor's face. Not divine, not monstrous, but weary beyond comprehension. She falls to her knees, understanding at last. Faith was never armor. It was a mask. And now the mask is falling. Vecht watches Kimura twist into a kaleidoscope of fear as even the darkest corners of the Dark City recoil. The Maker's presence burns like truth flaying exposed nerves. Demons flee, torturers scream, reality buckles. Vecht clenches his jaw, realizing a power beyond chaos now stalks the galaxy. A power that predates the birth of suffering itself, he whispers. This is not conquest. This is reclamation. For once, he has no plan. And in the warp's heart, the Emperor faces the Maker. Their powers collide. Warp and real space cracking like eggshells, time staggering, destiny keening like a dying choir. Celestine hangs in the ruins of their radiance, wings torn, tears of molten gold falling from her eyes. Guilliman reaches the psychic threshold, seeing both beings clash in a storm of origin and end. The Emperor roars a final earth-shattering truth. I stole your fire to save them. I surrender it to save them still. The Maker reaches for him. Light bends. Reality folds. Suddenly, the Emperor vanishes. It's not slain, not consumed, removed by his own will. The galaxy goes silent, and in his place, something begins to descend. In the breathless aftermath, when the Emperor vanished like a candle snuffed by his own trembling hand, the galaxy did not scream. It simply folded inward, like a man collapsing under the weight of grief, too vast for tears. Guilliman stood alone within the psychic ruins, the echo of his father's departure lingering like a final heartbeat fading into cold stone. Around him drifted motes of golden light, dissolving into the warp as though they sought a home denied to them since the dawn of mankind. Celestine's shattered wings reknit themselves slowly, painfully, each feather regrown from a memory of faith she no longer fully understood. She whispered a prayer not of devotion, but of mourning, mourning for a god who had walked willingly into oblivion, for a galaxy now forced to navigate its own darkness without his impossible fire. On Terra, the Golden Throne fell silent, its ancient machines resting like exhausted beasts after millennia of ceaseless suffering. Tech priests stood around it, weeping Meshanoil tears, for their equations offered no explanation, no ritual to reignite the Astronomican's wounded glow. The Astronomican's beam flickered but did not fail entirely, a pale, fragile ghost of its former brilliance, as if the Emperor had left behind a final whisper to guide humanity through the dimming storm. Custodians knelt in solemn formation, acknowledging that their sacred charge had ended not in triumph or apocalypse, but in a silence they could not break. The absence of their master pressed upon them like the weight of an unspoken truth. Across the Imperium, battlefields once torn by bloodshed lay stunned under skies that no longer roared with his wrath. On Armageddon, smoke cleared from the ruins, revealing orcs staring skyward with bafflement rather than bloodlust. Even Gezgul felt the shift, not fear, but recognition of a foe gone missing. Big on ain't, he muttered, jaw cracking as he struggled to comprehend it. For the first time in his endless waagh, he felt no prophecy tugging at his bones, only stillness. A stillness more disquieting than any war. On Elthwa, Eldrod awoke from the psychic collapse, his soul tasting dust and endings. The skeins no longer twisted with the Emperor's disruptive gravity. They flowed evenly, predictably, dreadfully, arose, with the slow wariness of one who has outlived too many prophecies. Balance returns, he whispered, though the words felt hollow. The galaxy had not been saved, only reset, like a wound reopened after millennia of scarring. The fate of the Eldar remained unchanged, a slow, inevitable decline. Yet Eldrod sensed a strange peace in knowing the Emperor's removal had not unleashed new horrors. Instead, it left the galaxy to its own awful, honest course. In the depths of solemnness, Trazyn the Infinite gazed upon his galleries with uncharacteristic uncertainty. Artifacts once buzzing with contradictory timelines now lay inert, resolved into final form. The shattered piece of Maker armor dimmed, its symbol dulling as though acknowledging the Emperor's departure. A recon entered, robes torn, eyes dimmed. The cycle resets, he said, voice dry as desiccated parchment. Trazen cocked his head. What role do we play in this renewal? Ulrican offered no answer. For the first time, the Necron seers beheld a future not clouded by divine interference, and found no comfort in its clarity. In the warp, the Maker watched the absence left behind by the Emperor's vanishing. The warp calmed around him, but not in reverence, in confusion. He extended a hand toward the last trace of golden fire drifting through the Imperium, but it slipped away from his grasp like a memory too faint to hold. Even this ancient being, older than gods, older than war, seemed momentarily lost. He returns what was stolen, the Maker murmured. But where has he gone? The warp did not answer, but it too felt the silence. Within the ecclesiarchy, sermons faltered. Cardinals stood upon ruined pulpits, voices trembling as they tried to declare faith unchanged. But beneath their words lay cracks wider than hive chasms. Pilgrims wandered the streets below, clutching icons now strangely heavy in their hands. Dawn. In the grand basilica of Holy Terra, a choir sang hymns of his eternal presence. Yet the sound echoed strangely, as though the vaulted halls themselves questioned the truth. A new fear settled over the faithful. Not that their God had died, but that he had chosen to leave. Among the Astartes chapters felt a fracture more subtle than grief, a shift in the spiritual gravity that had always anchored their purpose. The dark angels paused their endless hunt. Space wolves lifted their heads to a sky that felt emptier than Fenris in the still of winter. Even the Black Templars, fervent beyond reason, found their rage strangely muted, like torches flickering without wind. What did duty mean when the one who commanded it had stepped out of reality? What oath could be upheld when its creator had abandoned the blade? On Vigilus, the monolith sank back into the earth, leaving vast scars behind, silent reminders of truths too ancient to fully grasp. Canonis Veridine walked among the ruins, rosary clutched tight in her gauntlet. Was our faith a shield? She whispered. Or only a story meant to spare us from a harder truth? Her sisters offered no reply. The wind answered, carrying dust through shattered arches like the whisper of forgotten angels. In Camorra, even Vecht paused, listening to the tremor of shifting reality. The Maker's presence lingered like the echo of a threat, but without the Emperor's counterweight, the galaxy's balance felt precarious. Opportunities spread before him like a deck of knives, yet none tasted sweet. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Lord of the Dark City felt the faintest shiver of unease. The understanding that the galaxy was no longer a game governed by predictable gods. Lycia, aboard the Requiem Solus's Medicae deck, awoke with tear-stained cheeks. The final vision replayed in her mind, the Emperor offering his fire back to the cosmos, stepping willingly into a void beyond fate's grasp. He left us, she whispered, yet her voice carried not accusation but sorrow. But why? No answer came. Only the hum of a weakened Astronomicon pulsing faintly through the ship's hull like a dying heartbeat. And in the quiet between stars, where wars had raged and empires had bled, the final truth settled. The Emperor was gone. The Maker watched, and humanity faced the long night alone, without gods, without certainty, without destiny carved for them by hands older than creation. What becomes of faith when its foundation walks away? What becomes of a species when it learns it must save itself? Let the memory of this tale linger with you like incense in a shattered cathedral. And if you would honor the chronicle, its sorrow, its truths, its ruins, then stand witness. Like, subscribe, share, and speak your thoughts in the comments.